What is up, guys? Welcome to another video on my channel, HAIRLICIOUSLY. As you guys can tell in this video, I have been growing on my hair for a few weeks now. This side here is pretty long, but this side here, for some reason, when I got my hair cut about a month ago, the lady there cut this side very short, and this side, I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's pretty long here and it's pretty short here. So I've been trying to just grow it out, and hopefully in the next few months I will be able to grow it long enough where I can just cover my forehead and then try different hairstyles. Now, this right side here is obviously the area where the hairs are a lot more dense versus the side here where the density isn't quite there. And so that's why, I'm kind of limited as far as density wise for full coverage, but I'm gonna grow it out, see how it turns out, and then just take it from there. But as you guys can tell from today's video, I will be talking about one of the most difficult things about a hair transplant. Now, let's be honest, from start to finish, there is absolutely nothing easy when it comes to a hair transplant. Every single step seems to be a royal pain in the ass, starting with endless amounts of research online, looking for the best hair transplant doctors, lurking through different forums, looking on YouTube for different before and after photos to check on the density and the naturalness of a hairline. And then once you do end up getting a hair transplant, you have to worry about the redness on your scalp, how people might notice that you have actually had a hair transplant done. And then you worry about density, the angle of the hairs, and then you start worrying why your hair isn't growing after 34 months after your hair transplant. So there's so many variables when it comes to hair transplants, and a lot of patients who has undergone a hair transplant tend to stress a lot and really worry about some of the things that pertains to hair transplants. But there's one major thing that seems to trump everything else about a hair transplant. Based on my personal experience and from the majority of the people who have actually gone through a hair transplant, one of the most difficult things about a hair transplant is having patience. Now, if you don't have patience, you will be in for a long journey for a hair transplant. Patience is actually one of the most toughest parts when it comes to a hair transplant, but it's also one of the most important. Now, we have different types of cosmetic surgeries aside from hair transplants. We have breast augmentation, we have nose jobs, we have double eyelid surgery, we have, I don't know what the ear surgery is called, but if you have like a protruding ear, liposuction, butt implants. There's a lot of cosmetic surgery aside from hair transplants where the results are almost immediate. You can see a lot of the final results after a couple weeks or a few weeks. But hair transplants are on a different level. Doctors sometimes claim that it can take up to 2 years. I've heard anywhere from 12 months to 24 months to see the final post-op, the full 100% results of a hair transplant. But from personal experience, I can attest that the full growth and recovery can take almost a year. I think mine took about 9 to 10 months to see the full results, but I know that some people take longer because recovery times can be different from each person to person, and I've heard some people even had to wait until like their 18th month mark to see the final results of their hair transplant. And trust me, I know that it's very difficult. I know how tough it is with the whole waiting game. And I've been there myself many times after I had my first hair transplant. I would constantly look at the mirror, just searching for follicular life, just looking to see if any hairs would sprout out. Like even in my previous videos, like my initial videos in the beginning when I first started my hair transplant progress and when I started recording my results, I think I started posting up the videos around my 50-day mark. And even before then, I used to take pictures, since day one, where I would just constantly search the hairline, looking for, growth. I would constantly worry about the redness and why it wouldn't go away. And after 3 months, I was starting to get worried because I barely saw hair growth. And in certain areas, like when it comes to hair transplants, when the hair is growing out, it's not going to be constant. It's not going to be the same. The growth is not going to be the same. You might have more growth on one side than the other, and that's what happened in my case. And I started worrying because, I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt the doctor's work. And I really didn't know if this whole procedure was a disaster or not because it was my first time. I didn't really have enough experience and I didn't do full research when it comes to a hair transplant. So I didn't know what to expect and I just constantly stressed myself over and over. Every single day, just looking in the mirror, just looking for any signs of hair growth, trying to figure out why the redness wouldn't go away after 2 to 3 months when other people went to work like a week or two later. And so there's a lot of things that can drive you crazy after hair transplant. And this is why it really takes patience and a lot of time for you to kind of stop thinking about hair transplants and your growth and just realize that everything is different. Everyone has their own terms of recovery times. Not everyone's going to recover at the same time. Growth times, like I said, some people might see earlier growth than other people. The realization period where you actually start seeing results. So no two hair transplants are going to be alike. There's no two hair transplants, patients where the growth is absolutely the same. It's always different. For example, you might have some people who actually experience shedding. A lot of times you normally shed after your hair transplant. I think I shed about 95% of my hair. But there's certain people who actually don't shed or they barely shed and they still retain the hairs that were implanted and it continues to grow out. And the other thing is some people start seeing growth after 2 months after the hair transplant, whereas other people took, over 5 months to actually start seeing their little hair sprout on the recipient area. My final word is that patience is an essential part of hair transplants. And like I said, I think it's one of the most hardest things to endure because the results of a hair transplant are not going to be instantaneous. When you're really embarking down the hair transplant road, you really need to be patient and just really kind of stop looking at your hair every single day because you're not going to see any results that way. So yeah, my word of advice, if you did end up getting a hair transplant or if you are actually like in the first couple months of an FUE procedure or FUT procedure and you don't see any hair growth, just be patient and really make a conscious effort to put it in the back burner for at least a few months. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to, constantly worry and think why your hair's not growing. And in reality, you kind of have to step aside, stop thinking about it, keep yourself occupied. And then if you do want to keep track, what I would do is I would take pictures once a month and then compare it with some of the prior months to see how much hair has grown. The only thing that I would say is that hair growth is not the same, like I said. Some people might see hair growth in their, second month. Other people might see it in their fifth month. But if you don't see it like after your 5th month, I would go ahead and start consulting with a doctor because normally people should start seeing hair growth around their 3 to 4 month mark. If you are an early bloomer, you might be able to see it in about 2.5 months. And that's kind of like what I saw. But if you don't see it past your 5 month mark, that might be some red flags. It's not necessarily saying that it was a failed hair transplant. You might still be able to grow some hairs. Some people that I've seen on YouTube and different forums, if your hair doesn't grow after your 5th or your 6th month, consult with your doctor because there might be issues or you might just not be growing. But if it doesn't grow after like your 7th month mark, I would start worrying. That's when you really should start worrying because your hair should be growing at your 7th month mark. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave me some comments. Make sure to subscribe. And if you guys want to show me your hair transplant progress, you can go ahead and email it to me at HAIRLICIOUSLY.com. If you guys are interested in the hair transplant clinic that I went to, look in the description box and then I will have the email so that you guys can go ahead and send your questions and possibly a consultation. But thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.